Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to our small video today. My name is Ulf Kalweit. I'm a neurologist and I'm working at the University in Witten in Germany. With me today is Dr. Rolf Fronczek from Leiden in the Netherlands. He's also a neurologist and sleep specialist and member of the European Narcolepsy Network Board. Welcome, Rolf.
Thank you.
Rolf, today I would like to talk with you a little bit about the last European Narcolepsy Days, which just have passed some days ago in Berlin. So maybe I could start. What was your overall impression of this event?
First of all, I thought it was really nice and special that you could actually be there again. Like it was a hybrid event. So like 100 people were allowed to be there in a physical way and the rest was online. And that was really nice and good to have this again. So that was one really nice point. And also I must compliment you as one of the local organizers. Also Dr. Forche was also one of the local organizers because everything was really fine and well organized. It was for me just nice to travel again, to arrive somewhere, to see so many colleagues, like scientists, clinicians, but also patients. And it felt like a little bit like normal again. We started out Friday with the Narcolepsy Masterclass. And that's something that's now the European Narcolepsy Network, since a few years, we organize it ourselves. And that's also, it's always a nice day to have some basic knowledge again, also for the clinicians who are there to learn about narcolepsy, hypersomnia, treatment, diagnosis, and new guidelines. So it's a really nice first day. But then what I like most is then the narcolepsy days themselves. There are 2 days now. First it was the narcolepsy day, now it's the narcolepsy days. Because it's partly talks about management of pediatric narcolepsy, adult narcolepsy, but also some basic science. Young researchers, but also patients have really a large role. And also on Sunday, that was really a focus. There was one session mainly organized by patients. That's something, it's not always when you have these meetings that it's like equal inputs by clinicians, researchers, and patients. That makes it really special and nice. So that's what, I have really good memories of the UNN days in Berlin. Yes.
Thank you. So, I share this impression, and I have to say, I also realized how nice and how effective it also was, these kind of discussions during the small breaks and just to discuss matter with some colleagues, which is really very fruitful. Actually, you mentioned, and this is what I've heard also from different colleagues, that this is a very unique meeting, something special, different to other meetings. May you comment on this?
Yeah, like I said before, the patients have a large role, and that makes it really special. They listen in, which is of course very good, but also during the scientific and more hardcore science talks. But there are also talks about the impact of narcolepsy, the future, and how should narcolepsy be cared for, and other hypersomnias. I always like to hear the questions from patients. It's very different than what you expect from a colleague or a scientist. And also the parts which they organize themselves is always very focused on one aspect, and they do this really well. And I also see a lot, like if I compare it to previous years, that it becomes more professional, the way patients are there and how they organize themselves and how they give the lectures. And I think that's a really good sign. And one of the most important things this year was that the patients now have their own patient society. We have the European Narcolepsy Network, and now there's also a European patient network. They call themselves ENAP, which is a very good and funny name. ENAP, European Narcolepsy Association for Patients. One of the board members is also from the Netherlands, so I know her well. And there are board members all over Europe for this patient society, and it's really separate from the European Narcolepsy Network. Of course, we work together, but it's a separate organization, which I think is really good. They presented themselves officially in Berlin, so they had a presentation, and they organized a session where normally there are Q&A sessions where patients can ask doctors or scientists all their questions, and now it was vice versa. All scientists and doctors could ask them questions. So it was a Q&A aimed at patients, and there was a nice change to see this. And well, there were some original ideas about the way you could do this. Like as a patient organization in a country, you could. I liked the idea to have mentors or buddies, so that if you a couple more experienced patients with a newer diagnosis, so they can learn from one another. I think that's a really nice and good idea.
No, thank you. I fully agree that we can really learn a lot from each other, and also to have these kind of meetings is really unique and special, because in usually other meetings you have purely the one part or the other one, and I think it's we are sharing the same topic and the same idea and the same things we would like to improve. So this is very special. But I also want to address one additional point. So you also mentioned it. There's of course a lot of scientific presentation. Of course, we have an educational part, but it's also scientific. So when you think about it, what were some, let's say, highlights of the scientific new data we have seen at this meeting?
For me, there were two major things that I think are really interesting, not only to me, but to especially also to patients. You can feel this buzz already, because there are now hypocretin agonists being tested in trials. And that's, of course, the first time that you try to treat narcolepsy at the core, like what's causing narcolepsy, and really treat it there instead of only treating the symptoms. And well, I expect a lot. I hope expectations are high. That's what I should say. There are high expectations, and I hope they will hold true. And you feel this interest in this in the patient community in the Netherlands, but also in Berlin. And I think, what we hear now, it's very, let's say, promising. So let's really hope they work really well. So really change how we can treat narcolepsy. So that's one major thing. But there was not final results yet. It's like ongoing things that were presented. And then another thing, well, I also had a talk in the science part, that I have a lot of interest in the brain, of course, like a neurologist, but also what I think was really special and also a little bit sensitive sometimes is that we study the actual post-mortem brain of narcolepsy patients. So if we actually look at the place where it's happening, where we think it's happening, in the hypothalamus, that part of the brain, we look at the cells that are there. And I always wondered, why are there surviving neurons? They are supposed to be dead, or they died, or they were killed by an immune process. But if you look at the brains, there are always a few left. And what's the matter with those? Why did they survive? And there's always the question, are the neurons really gone or not? And there was, I didn't present that part, but there's recent data from a Swiss group. And some of the material that we obtained in Holland was used for these experiments, where they showed that there is maybe some evidence, but it's very preliminary and very careful, that perhaps the neurons are not really dead, but they're just silenced. So they're not there anymore. They're sleepy neurons, you can say. And if that is really true, that will tremendously change our view of narcolepsy and what we can do and what we can achieve in the treatment. But this is very preliminary, but just this tantalizing idea is really nice. And I hope we will hear more about this in the future, because this is really the first time this data was presented. It's very preliminary, very basic, and it still needs to be peer reviewed, published, everything, and then it needs to be replicated. But well, who knows? So those were two major things that I liked. And then if I may also add something spontaneous, sure. There was not a question, but I forgot to mention it. What made it unique for me, it was also unique that Dr. Broughton, he at the, how do we call it, the World Narcolepsy Award? Is that the name we gave it? Like the biggest award every year. It's the plan to give it to some really a famous researcher that did so much, or clinician or researcher that did so much for narcolepsy. And this time it was Dr. Broughton from Canada. And when I started research, my mentor, Professor Lammers, was already a huge fan of his work. And he said, this you should read. He's one of the great scientists, and he writes so well about narcolepsy and the state boundary control. So when I started out, I already knew this name, and now he was there. Like I saw the person finally. And he had this really great, also partly emotional lecture. That was also a unique part of this event for me.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think this was really an emotional award ceremony before, with I think also very, very promising and exciting from the young colleagues, from the young researchers for their awards. And then having this ceremony with Roger Broughton was really emotionally and very, also very unique. I fully agree to this. And I see also, as you say, we have seen a lot of new data, so data for the first time presented at some kind of meeting that are very promising. And I believe that many people who are watching this now will write to us and ask about when are the publications to come. And we hope to see new and these data soon. So Rolf, next year, European Narcolepsy Days will be in Bologna, and
Bologna.
So
looking forward to it. It's the last year that I'm in the board next year. It's my last, because it's my third term. So then, you're on the board, of course, as well. So it's always a little bit maybe a strange meeting then, because it's my last time as a board member in Bologna. But well,
so it will be also a little bit emotional meeting. So.
Yes.
So thank you so much for this interview, Rolf. It was great talking to you.
Yeah. Same.
And for sure, we will talk about this soon again. Thank you.
Also, thank you.